When you have a really complex problem, do you just ask one person for their opinion? Or do you get a team of experts in a room? Well, it turns out the exact same logic applies to AI. Today, we're going to dive into a super powerful approach that goes way beyond a single AI agent and instead builds a whole C-suite of specialized AIs to make truly solid decisions. This quote right here just says it all, doesn't it? Relying on just one AI model is like betting your entire company's strategy on one person's gut feeling. It can so easily get stuck on one bad idea or miss some glaringly obvious detail, creating this massive and frankly dangerous blind spot. And here's exactly how that single point of failure happens. A solo AI can get hit with anchoring bias, where it latches onto the first piece of info it sees, and it's got these huge blind spots outside of its core expertise. What you get is a false consensus that looks confident but is actually full of holes. A multi-agent council, on the other hand, completely avoids this by forcing independent analysis from different specialists, and that creates what you actually want: productive disagreement. Okay, to make this really concrete, let's look at a real-world example. A team was kicking around a new business idea, a tarot bot for the US market. So they asked a single general-purpose AI to check it out. And at first glance, yeah, the report looked pretty good. But that one analysis had missed several critical, absolute deal-breaking flaws. But then they ran the same idea past a council of AI experts, and oh boy, the story completely changed. The AI CTO, looking at the tech, realized there were no third-party APIs to even build on. The whole thing had to be built from scratch. The AI CMO, looking at the users, flagged that the target audience in the US doesn't even use Telegram. The CPO found the market was totally saturated with apps people already loved. And the CFO? The financial model was a complete fantasy. Each specialist, running their own focused analysis, found a fatal flaw that the generalist AI just sailed right past. So this powerful pattern of assembling an AI C-suite to really stress test an idea isn't just some clever trick. It's actually a formal architecture. Let's dig into what it's called and how it works. It's the CEO Council. So what is the CEO Council? Well, it's a pattern where you create these specialized AI experts, a virtual CTO, a CMO, a CFO, you name it. You give them all the exact same problem, and this is the critical part, they all work in parallel, completely isolated from each other. They each use their own tools to do their own research, and that independent analysis leads to a much more robust and realistic final answer. And the best part is, this isn't just some theoretical concept. It's a practical blueprint that you can actually implement. So how do you build one for yourself? Let's walk through the 5 key steps. The whole thing follows a really logical 5-step process. First, you gather up all the context on the problem. Then, you pick the right expert AI roles for that specific job. After you get your data ready and secure, you launch all the agents at once. Finally, and this is where the magic happens, you synthesize all their individual findings into a single structured report. Now, before we go any further, I have to pause on the single most critical rule in this entire process. You must sanitize your data before any information gets passed to these AI agents. All your secrets, all your API keys, any personal data, it all has to be stripped out. This is absolutely non-negotiable for security and privacy. Seriously. The real magic, the core of this whole pattern, happens in step 4. The key is that you launch all of your AI experts within a single command. Think of it like sending out a work order to 5 different departments at the exact same millisecond. This is what forces them to run in parallel and make sure that no single agent can influence another's thinking, which preserves that crucial independence of their analysis. And the final output you get from this is just incredibly valuable. You don't just get a messy pile of separate reports. You get this beautiful, synthesized document that shows you where everyone agrees. But way more importantly, it surfaces the disagreements. Those healthy tensions, like the CTO wanting to build fast versus the CMO being worried about market fit. It gives you clear action items and a risk matrix that shows you exactly who flags which problem. It's brilliant. Now, the council pattern is powerful, for sure, but it's not the only tool in the box. So let's zoom out a little bit, because choosing the right AI architecture, whether that's a solo agent or a full team, is probably one of the most important decisions you're going to make. Which of course raises the obvious question, right? Is a multi-agent approach like our CEO Council always the superior choice? And the answer is a very clear no, and this data shows you exactly why. For tasks that can actually be broken down and analyzed in parallel, a multi-agent system can boost performance by a staggering 81%. But, and this is a huge but, If you misapply that same architecture to a simple step-by-step task, performance can actually plummet by 70%. Picking the wrong tool for the job here is incredibly costly. So here's the rule of thumb. A single agent architecture. It's perfect for focused, sequential tasks, like a basic customer service chatbot or a structured workflow. But for those complex, messy, parallel jobs where you need to look at a ton of different factors at once, things like a financial risk assessment or a deep strategic analysis, that's where a multi-agent architecture really truly shines. Okay, so now that we know where each architecture excels, let's put together a final playbook. Let's talk about the specific high-stakes situations where calling in a CEO council is absolutely the smartest move you can make. This council pattern is really built for those big, multifaceted decisions. Are you facing a critical go, no-go product launch, a deep technical architecture review, trying to analyze a new market or figure out a pricing strategy? In pretty much any situation where you need multiple, unbiased perspectives, and especially for project postmortems when you need to know what went wrong, the council is your ideal tool. And that really brings us to the final question, one for you to think about. As you face your next complex problem, your next big decision, are you going to rely on a single point of view, or are you going to assemble a team? The quality of your answer might just depend on it. Thanks for tuning in.